it makes you really think about your priorities and what's important to you and what's really important and what actually just doesn't matter. And a lot of the things we were maybe previously getting stressed about, now we just think, whatever.
They say hindsight is 20/20, but what do we want our vision of 2020 to be? I want it to be positive, so stay tuned as I share 10 hopeful and uplifting stories from the last year. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Lori with Chrysalis Graphic Design. I help busy entrepreneurs create marketing material for their brand that looks great and doesn't take a ton of time. If that sounds good to you, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell so you get notified every time I post a new video. My video today is going to be pretty different from the other videos that are here on my channel, but I really wanted to take a chance here as we move from 2020 into 2021 and pull together some positive and uplifting stories from what for a lot of people has been a pretty tough year. Now, we've all heard the expression hindsight is 20/20, but I was really trying to focus on what I wanted my vision of 2020 to be. In a few years, when I look back, how do I want to remember this year? And I'm going to choose to look back on the positives, the good things that came out of this year. There are some things that just wouldn't have happened without some of the tough times that we went through. So I'm going to start off with my story, and then I'm going to share some from my family and friends and some from my audience that I asked this question of. My 2020 story really starts with trying to find a creative outlet this year. Now, previously, outside of my full-time job as a graphic designer, I had spent a lot of time working with my local community theater. That's actually where I met my husband. A lot of our friends are there. But when the lockdowns hit, obviously that avenue got shut down. Now, our local theater was amazing. They pivoted really quickly into doing virtual productions, but I tried that and it just wasn't a good fit for me. And so I was really looking for something else to do creatively. And I stumbled across some YouTube videos on, hey, you could start a channel in 2020. And I thought, what would I do? What would my channel be about? I did a lot of research and tried to figure out, what that would look like for me. And ultimately where I landed was this, doing graphic design and marketing tutorials as video. And I learned a whole new skill set. I found that I actually love doing video editing. It's a great creative outlet for me. But this is something that I never would have tried without this time that the lockdown had given me and not being able to go out and do live theater. So the other thing that came along with that was finding online groups and making new friends in the YouTube community. And one of the main groups that I'm a part of now has to do with video editing and YouTube strategy and growth and all that. And there's a couple gals from that group that are going to join me on this video and talk about some of their stories and the things that they have learned and positive things for them that have come out of 2020. So I'm going to share some of their stories coming up next. I just wanted to kind of highlight some other people's stories from this year and put some more positivity back into what's been kind of a tough year for some people.
Okay, all right. Well, firstly, just thanks for the opportunity, honestly, Lori, because it's made me really think about what has actually worked. And I was looking through my power sheets and realising that actually there's a whole section on the good things and what worked in the last year. And so there's a whole bunch of stuff in there, but actually earlier on I was really thinking, put all of that away, just what do I feel, what's really at the core of me. And actually for me it's part family and part work, which are two things that are really important to me. And so for family, I think I've mentioned I've got a brother in California and we miss him desperately. And we have a sister in Germany as well. And so we're all really close. So I'm in Scotland and I have two other sisters here, not too far away, but we have a sister in Germany and a brother in America. And they feel a little bit far away and a bit out of it when we're talking about things. And also our dad is here, he's on his own. Our mum died a few years ago. But what we've realised, and I was saying to my sister earlier on, a couple of weeks ago, I said, "Do you know, Louise, we're actually all the same distance apart now. We're all actually as close as each other, and we're not any further apart than that." And it was, in a funny kind of way, it has brought us literally closer together. We're a close family, and that's why we miss each other, and that's why it hurts. And that distance now, it's literally global. It's the same for our whole little wee family. Yeah. But we're connected. Probably the most important thing overall, which is probably quite common, is that it makes you really think about your priorities and what's important to you and what's really important and what actually just doesn't matter. And a lot of the things we were maybe previously getting stressed about, now we just think, whatever.
So I wanted to get some stories from people of good things that have happened in 2020. Obviously, it's been a heck of a year, a different year than any of us ever expected. So if you just want to share something good that has come out of this year for you, I would love to include that in my compilation.
Awesome. Well, I am Andi from True Blue Quilts, and the quilting community felt a little bit validated when the lockdowns happened and everybody was scrambling for masks, because all of us with this great fabric stash said, yes, we're ready. This is our moment. And we put our sewing machines to work. So many people just churned out masks for several months there before the items were more commercially available. So that was really interesting for the quilt community to have that skill and then bring in all these new people that were trying to support their communities as well with sewing skills. So that kind of a silver lining that more people are entering my industry. I'm in several groups with other quilt pattern designers, and a lot of them were ready and willing to jump into the new technology. So they got on board with Zoom. We've done virtual guild meetings, the old-fashioned quilting bees that you've heard of, where people just gather and sew together. That's now happening online, which is really fun. You can continue to have that community with the technology that's taken the forefront with all of this in 2020. And along those lines with the community, my favorite thing in 2020 was collaboration. So, you know, just like this, where we're in different industries and we're still coming together to support each other and share our stories, that's happening in the quilting community too. And I was thrilled back in May, I think was when I did the first one. I made some mashup videos because I had seen several different things where people were like taking stuff from one side and doing their little dance or whatever, and then passing off to another thing. And I said, hey, we could do that with our quilts too. And so this online community sent me a bunch of their little, 20-second clips, and I had a fun time putting those all together, building my own editing skills along the way, but those have been fun to share online as well.
I just wanted to spread some positivity here at the end of what's been a pretty tough and interesting year for a lot of us. So I've got my mom joining me for this part of the video, and she's got a really fun and unique story to share about how she got through kind of a tough time with missing my nephews, her grandsons, this year. So this is my mom, Carrie. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your good news story for 2020?
Okay, well, for over 10 years, I've been a primary caregiver for my grandsons every Friday. And so I've been used to seeing them weekly forever and ever. And then I retired from work and had just kind of stopped doing that when COVID hit. And it was hard at first not seeing him just in general. And then when COVID came and I absolutely couldn't go get him, I was really going into withdrawal and feeling bad. And, everybody was ordered to stay home, and it was very tough for me. But for Mother's Day that May, Lori's sister, my other daughter, Kristen, made a wonderful Mother's Day gift for me. She knew how much I was missing everybody, but the boys especially. So she got some t-shirts and made them into pillows. There's my two grandsons. And she made them so it's all stuff, but the arms are open. And so I can take my boys, and when I need them or feel bad, I can give them a hug. And, to some people, that seems like, oh, really, but it's amazing how much comfort and joy those hugs bring me. And they really do make me feel better and feel closer. So it was just the most awesome Mother's Day present I've ever gotten.
It's okay. I don't feel bad. My sister made her an awesome present. Well, thanks so much for sharing that good news story from 2020. Later on in the video, or I'm not sure where in the video it's going to hit. I haven't edited yet, but sometime here we're going to also talk to my sister, or have her story in here as well, of some good news that she had this year as far as making masks and raising money. She's an amazing sewer. So lots of good news happening this year, even amidst what's been a really tough time for some of us. So thank you so much for sharing that good news story about being able to get a hug whenever you need it. So thanks so much.
You're welcome.
In addition to these video interviews that I did with Dorothy and Andi, and of course with my mom, I also was able to reach out to some family and friends, and as I said, some people just in my audience that were able to just send in stories for me that I'm going to share here today. And I hope they're going to be inspiring and help you to take a moment to really look back on 2020 and look for the positives that came out of this year for you. So I'm going to move into sharing some of those stories here now. One mom told me that the best part of 2020 for her would have to be having all of her children home for Christmas. Her adult son has been stationed in England in the Air Force for the last 2 years, and her daughter was in Rhode Island in the Navy for this past year. This was their little brother, a toddler's, first Christmas where he knew what was going on. Both of the older kids weren't sure if they'd make it home for Christmas due to COVID shutdowns. But thankfully, they made it, and the family was all able to spend Christmas Eve and Christmas morning together. This mom realized that she had a powerful sense of peace that week, that with all of her children were home, all was right with the world. And the toddler couldn't have been happier to have his big brother and sister around. For another person, 2020 started out like any other year. In June, however, he learned that he would be losing his job due to COVID, a job that he had had for the past 10 years. As a relatively new homeowner, this caused some worry, except that when he left his job on that final day, he realized that it was the best thing that could have happened to him. It gave him time to pursue some passion projects, including the construction of a home recording studio and gaining proficiency in sound editing software, with the end goal being the pursuit of a voiceover or voice acting career. In the meantime, he was able to find a different job that suits his skills better and makes him feel like he's doing something useful instead of just passing time like with his old job. Remember I said earlier we'd come back to my sister? Well, this is her story. Since COVID started, she says that she's probably made at least 300 masks for herself, coworkers, etc. Every year, her company has a big fundraising effort for the Alzheimer's Association, with the corporate office in Iowa and all of their over 140 communities across the country competing to raise the most money. With this year's unique circumstances, and not really being able to do a more traditional fundraiser, they decided to hold a mask sale for their residents, with masks made by both staff and resident seamstresses. As the official color for the Alzheimer's Association is purple, My sister made about 50 masks in various purple fabrics, and they were very popular. Her masks raised $800 for the cause, and overall, as a building, they raised over $12,000, second only to the corporate office. She says it was a pretty neat thing to be a part of, and their community life service team, basically the independent living activity staff, surprised all the mask makers with these really cool mugs as a thank you. One of my other friends shared this inspirational story with me from 2020 about how she expanded her house sitting business. So many families hit the road this year and needed someone to care for their furry family, and she got to be that person for them. It was a huge relief and a blessing for them, and she got such great joy out of doing it. She was away from home a lot, which made summer projects at home hard to get done, but she says the joy of helping balanced it out. And as a furry family lover, she had so much fun. Another family told me that they have found precious time together this year because their daughter has been home and not running off to a lot of activities. They've eaten at the table together and had conversations about gratitude, and they have looked after each other's health. They are so thankful for the time together with no activities to run off to and being able to work from home. This has brought them much closer together as a family. One of my coworkers shared this inspirational story about celebrating with the class of 2020. She says, "My son Evan was a high school senior this spring, and like all the students in the graduating class of 2020, he missed out on the typical rites of passage seniors typically look forward to: prom, school performances, grad night, and the graduation ceremony. Fortunately, we live in a wonderful, caring community with a great deal of spirit and ingenuity, and they decided that they needed to find a way to celebrate our graduates. The local Fiesta Society partnered with town leadership to host a graduation car parade for the seniors. More than 500 students participated, gathering in vehicles in an open field and lining up to ride with their families or small groups of friends down the main street of the town. Residents turned out in force as well, with more than 1,000 residents lining the main thoroughfare of downtown San Juan Capistrano. All wore masks, and many were holding up signs they'd made honoring the class of 2020. Many even had noisemakers and balloons. The kids felt like celebrities, and as a parent and participant, it was incredibly joyful and emotionally moving. While definitely not your usual graduation, it was incredibly special and in many ways far more memorable than a traditional graduation ceremony would be. In addition to the town celebration, our neighborhood social committee decided to honor the more than a dozen high school and college seniors living in our community with another parade. The parents ordered banners to hang from our garages, and the community created a huge banner at the entry of the neighborhood with a separate panel listing each graduate by name. On the Saturday following what would have been graduation, neighbors drove slowly through the neighborhood, singing and cheering on the graduates who sat outside their homes with their families. Each graduate was gifted a box of several special graduation-centric items as well as an individual cake. Again, it was incredibly special, and we are planning to make it an annual event, as the kids and families all loved it. Finally, when the school was still unable to host a live graduation by late July, they hosted a drive-through graduation in which each graduate exited their family car, walked across the stage, collected their diploma, had their portrait taken, and then re-entered the family vehicle. So while the class of 2020 graduation was far from normal, it was definitely memorable, and the silver lining was how everyone came together to make sure it was special for them. Thanks for joining me today. I hope this was helpful and it inspired you as well to take a look back at the last year and think about something positive that came out of it for you. Please give this video a like, thumbs up down below, and let me know in the comments what positive stories you came up with when you thought about 2020. Thanks so much.